In Season 1 we took the Blood DK from 0 to KSM. We did the same for Season 2, but this time on a Mistweaver Monk. Both classes, specs and roles completely out of my comfort zone. But today, that changes. Because today we start our new epic adventure, taking a Ret Paladin from 0 to Keystone Hero. That's right, this time we are going for 2500 rating. But before we jump into this challenge, there are a few questions that I need to answer and a couple of things to go over. Questions such as why the Ret Paladin, how this series is going to work, and my master plan for this challenge. Alright, so before all of those flavour of the month pitchforks come out, I just want to go on record to say that this challenge has been planned since before 10.05. It had the rework coming up, it looked interesting, and even at that point, and I've been going on about it for a while, but I've been wanting to take a break from the Demon Hunter for some time. I've been playing it pretty much exclusively since Legion, and with the way it is now, with Momentum being the go-to spec for Mythic Plus, I just simply can't play the Demon Hunter anymore to a level where I'm happy with and I want to be. So I've been testing some specs since the release of Dragonflight, and I feel like Ret Paladin is the best fit for me. Not only do I enjoy playing Ret, but Prop Paladin is probably one of my favourite tanks. I played a little bit of Prop Paladin at the beginning of Season 1 when I was prepping for the Blood DK to KSM challenge. I did some low keys when it was a Grievous week. You guys remember that affix? Yeah, well, I was able to deal with all of that just with Word of Glory. It was amazing. The healer probably didn't even notice. Along with this, you have all of the blessings and your defensives. For me personally, especially in the state they are both in now, I strongly believe that both Ret and Prop Paladin are hands down the best specs for a pug environment. You have so much to offer, you do so much damage, and I feel like if you are only pugging, these are the two specs that will carry a group, if played well, of course. So these are my reasons for wanting to do the Ret Paladin. It's been super hard keeping everything a secret. A bunch of you guys have been recommending that I try the Ret Paladin because, as I mentioned, I've been pretty vocal about not enjoying the Demon Hunter so much. Hey Dilly, you should try the Ret Paladin. Hey Dilly, you'd really enjoy the Ret Paladin. Well, now you know. And I must admit now, because of the rise of Ret Paladin and how well it performs, I actually considered not doing this challenge. But at the end of the day, it's been planned for a very long time, and I think I've proved over the last couple of challenges that I'm not that flavour of the month player. So hopefully I've gained some credibility. Oh, and I tell Keita about all of my upcoming challenges, by the way, so she can back me up. Alright, so I guess you're wondering how this series is going to work. Well, I've kind of decided that I want to do things a little differently. In the previous two challenges for both the Blood DK and the Monk, I've kind of treated them as they were my main character, my only character. And with the Monk especially, we began at the beginning of the season. So now I would like to treat the Paladin as an ult, though it could potentially become my main, so I'm not going to mess around with this one. So I'm going to look to gear this Paladin as quick as possible, and as mentioned, because we're not at the beginning of the season, and we're already some months in, I'm going to take full advantage of all of the catch-up mechanics. So I will look to obtain my 4 set as quick as possible. And of course we have the catch-up for the Splintered Sparks, so I can get my hands on some crafted gear. Alright, so I know I've been waffling on for a few minutes now, but I've just got a couple more things before we get into the content, because there's a lot to cover. I am of course a melee main. I've been playing Havoc Demon Hunter since Legion, so this challenge should be easier than previous challenges. I should feel more confident and comfortable, and this one may go a lot quicker than previous series. But I have to rely on pugs, so just bear that in mind. I'm going to try to cover as much as possible. I'm going to be grinding a lot of dungeons, and the format is going to be a lot different to what we used to. I'm also going to be jumping into the raid, both LFR and normal, because I really want the beacon. So here is what you can expect from the series. Instead of starting off from the weekly reset being a Wednesday, I'm going to start on the Monday. Typically Monday will be my raid day, so I'll look to get LFR and the normal raid complete. And then if I have time for the rest of Monday and the rest of Tuesday, those are typically going to be my grinding days. So for example, at the beginning where I need to grind a load of worm crests, I'm going to look to do this simply to speed up the process and gear as quick as possible. They'll obviously be recorded, so if anything happens, you'll know. But that's how these episodes are going to start. And then of course, we're going to jump into the vault. We're going to see what juicy loot we get. We will look to complete any weeklies if necessary. And then we can jump straight back into the Mythic Plus. So yeah, I'm not just playing the paladin like I did with the previous 2 challenges just on the Wednesday. I'm really going for this one because I consider it a new main at this point. So I have put together a complete gearing plan and how I want to format this series. But I've already kept you guys waiting for over 5 minutes now, and I apologize for that, but we've had a lot to cover. So, as it currently stands, the Paladin is sitting at 407 item level. Of course, we had a few items from the previous season, but over the last few weeks, I've been completing the weekly quests, and I've been grinding heroic dungeons. So I've already accumulated a little bit of gear, but it's not like we can immediately jump into plus 16s and start farming aspect crests. So there is still a lot of work to be done. Oh, and a little disclaimer now for stuff like time walk-ins and weekly dungeons. Strictly no Mythic Plus, but I will be using protection spec for faster queues. I avoided this with the Mistweaver Monk, but it just speeds up the process and makes my life so much easier. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that now. Now, I did run LFR, but unfortunately I didn't get any loot from this place, so we're just going to skip over that part. I spent some time signing for the normal raid, and at 407 item level, it was a little tricky. It took about 45 minutes to an hour to actually get accepted to a group. The first group I joined struggled to get the players, and the leader just decided to go offline, so that disbanded pretty quickly. A further 15 minutes later I get into another group, and honestly, why they would take a 407 rep paladin, I do not know, but I'm not complaining. I think for the most part, especially when it comes to the normal raid, if you have a few pumpers in the group, you can afford to bring some lower geared players just to bulk up the group, and I believe the loot is scaled on how many players are in the group. So typically groups tend to go for at least 20 players, and I guess me and a handful of others were just making up the numbers. It's fine by me. So there were a couple of items in here that I really wanted, but overall, anything's going to be an upgrade from this place. I do already have a few pieces at 415 item level from doing the 5 heroic weekly dungeons, and from one of the other weeklies I do have a pretty nice pair of wrists at 437. Though I can't remember where I got the shoulders from, if I'm honest. Yep, that one's still a mystery. So, top of my wish list is obviously the beacon trinket from Sark. There are also a couple of trinkets that I'd like to play around with. One being the chromatic essence, and we have the anvil. I think the class trinket might be pretty good as well, but I'm honestly not sure at the minute. Those are the trinkets that I've put on my wish list. Those are the ones that appeal to me, but honestly, I'd be happy with anything. We go through and take down the first boss, and I look at details to see that Dilly is nowhere to be seen. Or no, I might be in trouble. The build I'm running for the raid is actually a single target raid build found on Wowhead. At this point, I honestly have no idea what's going on. I don't know the rotation very well, but I don't expect to compete with anyone on damage in this place anyway. In terms of the Mythic Plus build that you'll see later on in the video, I've gone for a Crusader's Strike build over the Templar Strike. For me, this is a more simplified build, and I just enjoyed the playstyle a little bit more. Yeah, I really didn't like the Templar Strike combos. Alright, so first boss down, no loot. We then take down Amalgamation, and again, no loot. We take down boss number 3, and my eyes light up when I see the chromatic essence. Immediately, someone rolls a 93. And then it gets even worse because someone rolls a 97. I can also get my hands on some tier gloves because 2 of them drop. You see what I did there? Hands on gloves. Alright, so I click need on the chromatic essence. And
what the heck?
But to make things even better, I roll need on both of the gloves. And I get one of those as well. Well, even if I don't make it to the end of the raid and I get kicked for my awful damage, so far it's been a massive success. But for now, they keep me around and we move on to Warlord Cagney. Cagney? Did I say that right? Cagney? We take down this guy and 2 grapnel trinkets drop. I click need on both of these and I eagerly await to see the results. And to my surprise, and it might not be surprising to you guys, but only 2 people roll on these. So I get one of these as well. Well, this is going well. We take down the next few bosses, but sadly we get no loot and we find ourselves at Neltharion. This one takes a few attempts, but we finally get him down and a shield drops. No good for my main spec obviously, but as mentioned, I look to do time walk-ins and the typical weekly stuff as prop. So I definitely want to get some tanking gear as well. There's only myself and another warrior that can roll for this item, and I end up winning this one too. We are off to one hell of a start to this challenge. So we move on to Sark, the last boss, and it takes a few attempts, but we finally get him down. And 2 of the very rare Silent Star back pieces drop. You just know everyone will be rolling on this. And so far, someone has rolled a 97 and a 99. So my chances are very slim. But we've overcome this hurdle before. I need the first one, and I don't get it. I need the second one, and sadly, I don't get this one either. But 4 items in the first raid at the beginning of the challenge, this is huge. So after the raid, it takes our total item level up to 410. And then I went ahead and attuned my chromatic essence. Because of the Crusader Strikes build, I went with haste. I'm not sure if that was the right move, but I felt like that would benefit me the most. So those Rep Paladin players, is that the right move? Did I make a mistake? If so, what should I have gone for? We return the next day, a Wednesday, which means it is reset day. And that means because we completed the raid, we have the vault to open. Though before I went ahead and opened the vault, I saw a world quest in Zaralek Caverns, which was a pretty big weapon upgrade. So I went ahead and did that, got the weapon, and it took our total item level up to 412. So our first vault of the series. And I should probably mention that today is the release day for patch 10.1.5, which is super exciting because we have all this new content. We have the mega dungeon, which I plan on jumping into at some point. We have all the class changes and balancing, and then we have the Org Evoker. Yeah, don't worry, you'll see a couple of those today. Alright, so I choose not to do the 5 heroic dungeon quests, because I feel like it would just be a waste of time. And unfortunately, the Valdrakken weekly is PvP, so that doesn't really apply to us. Now, I already have tier gloves, and I can convert both the shoulders and the chest, although the chest piece is a veteran piece, so I don't really want to convert a veteran piece, but as you'll see shortly, as part of the catch-up mechanic, because we're already weeks in to the catalyst, we're sitting on a bunch of charges, so it's not going to take very long to get my hands on 4 set. So from today's vault, tier would be absolutely amazing, in slots that I don't already have. I'm never going to say no to a weapon, but undoubtedly the beacon trinket is the one thing, the one item I am hoping for the most. So I step forward, I start opening the vault, and it's not quite beacon, but would you look at that. One thing I didn't consider was the Ashkanda, and oh my golly, my luck so far, the start to this series has been insane. But if you didn't think my luck could get any better, whilst I was preparing this character and sorting out their bags, to those that know me, you'll know that I am terrible with bag space. I don't sell a lot of my items and it's just a complete mess. I go through the bank on my paladin and I honestly have no memory or idea of where this came from, but the paladin has a flavor pocket. What the hell? It's just sat there doing nothing. I've been buying these. From here, I go to enchant all of my gear. I may have cheaped out on a few bits just because it's really low item level. I convert my shoulders to get 2 set. And then I go and spend some of my crests that I have been accumulating over the weeks and those that I got from the raid. Man, I didn't realize you got so many fragments from the raid. It's insane. That's going to help for gearing. After all this, it takes our total item level up to 419. And we've not even set foot in Mythic Plus. That is absolutely bonkers. It was then finally time to step foot in Mythic Plus for the very first time on the Rep Paladin. Though unfortunately for me and everyone else on EU, the servers went down for quite a few hours. Aren't NA meant to be testing this stuff for us? EU don't deal with downtime, what is this? Well, this sounds like the perfect opportunity for my call to action. Hey you! Yeah, you! Are you enjoying the series so far? Do you want to be just as lucky as I am with all this loot? Then why not show your appreciation by leaving this video a like? It helps the channel out, makes me happy, but more importantly, gives you the best loot in your weekly vault. Alright, back to the video. After hours of clicking that reconnect button to see if the servers were available, the game finally comes back online. So it is finally time. Time to jump into some Mythic Plus and begin this epic adventure. Man, I'm excited. I'm going to begin by running my own key and we start with a freehold +2. And with this, because it's only a +2 after all, I thought I would talk about the plans for this challenge and everything I have prepared for the spec. So in terms of the challenge, to begin with, I'm going to work my way up to 11s and farm worm crests. Well, sort of. Firstly, I'm going to see what my character can actually handle. I'm going to look to see if I can get up to maybe 15s and 16s, and make sure everything is pretty much above a 13. And then on the Monday and Tuesday, when I'm grinding 11s for worm crests so I can upgrade my gear, I won't actually be getting any rating from these. And then by week 2, I hope to have KSM. By doing this, I can get a free token so I can get an extra bit of tier. and I want to be looking to get into the 16s as quick as possible to farm aspect crests. Once I have obtained enough worm crests, I'm going to look to get some crafted items. So far I think I've settled on 3 pieces and the embellishment, and those are the unstable frostfire belt, the frostfire leggings, and then one of the signets with a flavor pocket. I don't like wasting food, okay? So crafted gear is what I'm going to prioritize with the worm crests to begin with, as they will simply net the biggest upgrade. After that I will look to upgrade the remaining champion gear to as high as it can go. Along with this I will continue to farm both LFR and the normal raid for the beacon. And that's where we will start looking into pushing 16s and farming aspect crests. Of course from here, same as the worm crests, we are then going to upgrade our crafted gear, and then we can upgrade everything else. Once we have everything in place and we feel confident, we can start pushing towards KSH and beyond. In terms of everything that I have planned for the spec, I have put together 2 Crusader Strike Mythic Plus builds, one to deal with Afflicted and one to deal with Incorporeal. I have created a bunch of macros with mouse over stuff to help with my blessings and my healing. I'm also using a focus target macro for my interrupts, which I've never done before. It's pretty sweet, I highly recommend it. I'm working on my professions as I mentioned before. I created an entire BIS item list. This includes all my crafted gear and embellishments. And then I've gone ahead and prepped all of my consumables. So yeah, we're pretty prepared. So back to the freehold run, and as you would probably imagine, we end up free chesting this key. It gives us a whopping 68 rating, and we loot a splintered spark from the chest. Now, I'm not going to get too excited about my damage just yet because this was only a +2 and the DK was pulling a lot of packs. Along with this, we have an augmentation evoker, so my damage is being enhanced by them as well. But that's fine because I have a feeling you're going to be seeing a lot of those in your keys too. The next key we jump into is a Bracken Hide 5. Once again, absolutely dominating this key with 0 deaths, smashing the damage meters, and look, once again another augmentation evoker. Now, I'm not going to talk about these places too much, especially the lower side of keys, unless something happens that's worth talking about. At the minute, I'm just trying to get a feel for the Rep Paladin. I'm currently taking note of some of the UI elements that I need to change, some of the macros that I need to create, and just some things I need to work on in general. For example, using Blessing of Freedom on one of the party members that gets barreled on the second boss of Freehold. Yeah, stuff like that, especially in higher keys, very vital. My typical build for the Rep Paladin includes a Dispel because I want to help out with as much as possible. Though obviously if I start playing the higher keys with the team, I can tweak my build accordingly. But I don't really think there's too much to change, to be honest. So yeah, we +3 this key and it takes our total rating up to 158. The next key we are given is a Freehold +8. I kind of wish it gave us a different key, but to be honest, it really doesn't matter at this level. We just want to get our key and push and get everything around a +13 or a 14. But because we are now at a +8, it's probably a good idea to tell you about this week's affixes. So this week it is a fortified week. At +7 we get the introductory of Volcanic, and at +14 we get Spiteful, which might not actually be too bad for me because my spells are like ranged abilities, right? Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Once again, not too much to cover for this one, but thankfully there are a couple of things that I want to touch on. Firstly, the meta, and although we have not got an augmentation evoker in this run, I think we're going to start seeing the rise of Guardian Druid and Holy Paladin. Well, actually, before the reworks, they were on the rise. They were doing really well, especially Holy Paladins, and Guardian Druid, yeah, that was pretty strong too. But now, after both of them got reworked, yeah, I'm pretty sure unless they get nerfed or something happens, these guys are going to dominate for quite a while. The next thing that I just want to touch on is a couple of my abilities. Now, I believe looking back at the footage that it is my judgment ability, and I really need to be careful with this one because as you see here, I ninja a couple of packs. Obviously not intentional, but I clearly didn't know how the spells worked. I mean, I know how they work, but I didn't expect them to go that far, and especially to groups that we're not even in combat with. Yeah, that was fun. They told me off for that as well. The first boss here is where I felt for the first time perhaps I was lacking that little bit of damage. Typically single target. AoE absolutely pumps. In terms of single target boss damage, I was probably the lowest DPS in the group. Trash packs, however, well, I made up for that in AoE because, oh my goodness, Rep Paladin AoE is absolutely insane, even at lower item level. And it's so much easier to pull off than the Havoc Demon Hunter I've been playing. So once again, we end up 3 chests in this run and it takes our total rating up to 218. And as you can see, the damage is there. I actually think I did more damage this time without the augmentation evoker. Yeah, I'm still confused about that. No loot from this one, but of course it bumps our key up to an 11. And that means we can start farming some worm crests. The key we are presented with next is a Neltharian's Lair 11. Up until now, I really didn't care who I took. I didn't bother looking at gear so much, although the people I have been taking have been fairly geared anyway, and rating really didn't matter to me. But now I broke into the 11s, I wanted things to go quickly and smoothly. So I typically took people that were above 410 item level, and in terms of rating, I was just looking for those that have actually done a key at this level. I wasn't so bothered about it being an Neltharian's Lair, but I didn't want to take someone that had never been here before. Other than a few deaths, this run goes really smoothly. And once again, Guardian Druid and Holy Paladin. We end up 3 chests in this run, it takes our total rating up to 370, and we get no loot. Now, I've not been too bothered when it comes to loot so far, but now that we've broken into those champion piece categories, here is where I want to look to switch loot specs, so I can dictate what can potentially drop for me. Let's take Brackenhide for example. I'm going to be doing a little bit of tanking, so the Treemouth trinket would be very, very handy. And I don't particularly need anything from there that requires me to roll ret spec. Now, sometimes I forget to change my loot spec and we end up clearing mythic dungeons. Yeah, once you finish the dungeon, you're kind of locked to that loot spec. Sometimes I remember and try and change it after in the hopes that it does work for me, but I'm pretty sure your loot spec gets locked in place when you finish the dungeon. So make sure you don't do a dilly and forget. From here, we move on to Halls of Infusion 14. That's right, we've only just started this challenge and already we are pushing into the 14s. Like I said, Dilly's not messing around. Now, this was the dungeon that kind of defined Ret Paladin for me and set the expectations of what Pug Life was really about. Because here was the first time where I felt like I had to use all of my utility, my defensives, I had to kite, and I had to do a lot of healing. Up until now, I've barely had to touch any of that. It's been pure damage. And I just want to remind you guys that today was the first time I played Ret properly, because all of the dungeons and stuff that I've been grinding recently was all done in protection. So although I am massively impressed and happy with my damage output, I'm not even sure if I'm playing properly. Along with this, I'm also learning situations of when to use my utility abilities, such as Blessing or Freedom, and the best times to use some of my defensives. Dude, we have so many. So yeah, this is just a friendly reminder that I'm not going to be playing to the fullest, and I'm going to be making a lot of mistakes. Now, here's where we start seeing some deaths. Of course, because it is a 14, we get the introductory of Spiteful. The tank decides to charge ahead and chain pull the next group, and it seems like the healer takes far too many hits from the Spiteful and dies. This now means that I need to start taking over from the healing side. Along with this, the apparatus hurt, and we've covered this before. So they cast an ability called X-Pulse. If you don't interrupt or stun it, you're probably going to die, especially this week because it's fortified. And that's exactly what happens. Now, looking back at the footage, you can see that I'm doing a lot of off healing. I managed to interrupt one of the X-Pulse casts, I stun another one, though unfortunately for the third cast, I'm a little slow using Blinding Light. Now, Blinding Light dazes all enemies within 10 yards, and it causes them to wander disorientated for 6 seconds. Does this work on the apparatus? Once again, something I'm not sure of, so maybe a friendly Ret Paladin can let me know in the comments below. But yeah, this entire situation has just shown me how valuable Paladins are in a pug environment. And I just love playing a class or spec where I feel important and needed. And you know the saying, not all heroes wear capes? Well, after some of these packs, I felt really good about myself. Now, that being said, do you remember what I said in one of the previous Freehold runs, where my Justice ability pulled an additional group? Well, I think we may have found the new theme to this series. It's not hunters you have to worry about, it's me. In my defense, he could have pulled them back a little bit. The tank decided to jump in with the patrolling pack right next to it. It was kind of asking for trouble. Now, we got to the gauntlet just before the last boss, and it seemed the warrior had no mitigation and no defensives. And with a pack like this on fortified, yeah, you're just asking for trouble, man. Eventually, we regroup and get to the last boss with 3 minutes remaining. And thankfully, the boss goes really well, no one dies, and we end up timing this key, which takes our total rating up to 563. Damn, in terms of rating, that was a pretty big jump. No loot from this run, sadly. I continue to push further, and this time we are presented with a Bracken Hide 15. So far everything has gone pretty well. The Halls of Infusion run could have gone a lot better, but we still timed the key. Now throughout this entire run I had to encourage the tank to try and pull more than 1 or 2 mobs. Because if I'm absolutely honest, if you're doing plus 15s and you're only picking up 1 or 2 mobs, you're probably not going to time many runs. And as most of my damage is AoE, that's where I'm more effective, so the more you pull, the more damage I can do. But yeah, even with my guidance, they were very hesitant to pull more than 1 pack at a time. And for the most part, this is where we failed for time. The damage for the party wasn't great overall, but it was doable. This spot here is a great example, and I have no idea what is going on with the monk, but they're losing it, man. So we don't time this key, obviously, as you can see, but there's no point just calling it. We might as well finish the last boss. So I tell the group to start the boss, and we get going. The boss gets to roughly 80%. Oh, I guess this guy's just going to herf out of here then. Alright, thanks. So as you would imagine, we end up wiping, and we attempt to take down the boss with just the 4 of us. But that's not the best part. This guy actually has the audacity to whisper me. Like, is this guy for real? You potentially grief the run by leaving, and then ask if we've done it. Like, they didn't grief the key because we already overtimed it. But we're at the last boss, we might as well just finish it. I don't know, man. Every once in a while I meet someone like this. This takes us a couple of attempts to get down, but thankfully we do manage to finish the boss. No rating from this obviously, but it does reward us with a ring. Kind of felt like I deserved some loot after that run. Well, that was the end of everything I did on Wednesday, and I was pretty tilted after that run. So I decided to go to bed, get some rest, and smash it the next day. So here we are, Thursday morning, and I was ready to get started. And the key we got from last night's Bracken Hide was a freehold 14. Is it going to give us different keys, or are we just going to go back to freehold all the time? I didn't mind so much in this case because my previous freehold was only a +8, so we've still got plenty of rating to gain from this one. Now, this episode's getting pretty lengthy as it is, and we've already covered this place twice. Plus, apart from some silly individual mistakes which caused most of the deaths, there's nothing actually worth mentioning. Well, apart from maybe the fact that, once again, we have a Guardian Druid and a Holy Paladin. So we do end up 2 chests in this run, and it takes our total rating up to 631. And holy moly, just look at the damage. I do loot a cloak from the chest, but sadly it's not the stats that I'm looking for. The next place we go to is a Bracken Hide 16. Yeah, we gotta go to this place again. Now, this is actually my favourite place for Season 2, and it's actually my favourite dungeon in Dragonflight. But that last run just left a sour taste in my mouth. Now, I really wanted to do well in this run, because this run included another Ret Paladin that had 435 item level, a good 15 or 16 above me. And I think for the most part, the rest of the group apart from myself were above 430. The bosses themselves weren't much of an issue, but I think there was a combination of perhaps the tank taking a bit too much damage at times, and the healer struggling to deal with it. So we had many situations where the tank died, all of the threat was then transferred to the rest of the party, usually me, and of course the group wiped. For some of these it was really frustrating, because as half of the party was dying, the other half respawned and started running back to the rest of the group. Those alive were running back and kiting the adds to us, and from there it was just a chain of many deaths. So yeah, it was another one of those runs. We get to the last boss well over time and with 28 deaths. We do end up taking the boss down, it takes our total rating up to 743, and I pick up some wrists from the chest, though sadly, I already have better. The next key I am presented with is a Neltharian's Lair 14, though at this point I don't want to continue grinding the same dungeons. So I start queuing for some other places that I need rating for. And this is where I run into a bit of an issue, because apparently no one wants to accept a 420 Ret Paladin. So I'm sat here signing to keys for about half an hour, and eventually someone accepts me into an Underrock 13. I was personally trying to get into some 15s and 16s. I gave up after about 20 minutes and I decided to sign up for some 13s and 14s. I mean, I think I've proved that I'm more than capable of doing 15s and 16s, but because of my item level and my rating, yeah, I get that there aren't many statistics to prove that a player is capable other than looking at an item level and rating. So a fresh character where I'm not tied to any other raider IO, I kind of get it, but I'm also frustrated at the same time. This is why running your own key is very, very valuable. Alright, so I'm not going to cover any of this run. We have 8 deaths that are down to individual mistakes, but the run overall was actually quite decent. And we ended up 2 chests in this key, and it took our total rating up to 915. No loot from this run, though the only thing I really want from this place is the mount. From here, I sign up and get into a Nelfaris 14. That's right, I got accepted this time. You want to know how? Well, once again, I was getting sick of being declined. And on one particular occasion, I decided, you know what? I'm going to reapply to that key and I'm going to whisper the guy. And all I say to this person is that I am more than capable. And you know what? It worked. Just like the underwrite, I'm going to speed this one up. There's not too much to cover. However, even though it was listed as a 14, it was a 15. I do sacrifice myself at the last boss to get down the shield. And we do end up timing this run, and it takes our total rating up to 1,118. And would you look at that? Looks like Dilly was capable after all. Once again, no loot from this one, but we just timed a 15. Not bad for my first week on the job. From here, we move on to an Alderman 14. Yeah, this one didn't take too long to get into. Maybe I passed the threshold? Anyway, there were some packs throughout the dungeon that were quite spicy. Perhaps at times we pulled a little bit too much. And over the dungeon, we accumulated 14 deaths. Though, just like the last one, we are able to take down the last boss, and it takes our total rating up to 1,314. And from the chest, we loot a headpiece, which means we now have our 4 set in the first week of pushing. Because now we can convert this headpiece and we can convert our veteran chest. Probably not ideal being a veteran piece and all, but we've got so many catalyst charges that it really doesn't matter. So we hop over to the catalyst, we convert the headpiece, we convert the chest piece, and now we have 4 set. Damn, this felt good. And now we are officially 420 item level. So in terms of rating, there were 2 places remaining that I needed to run. And next on the list was Vortex Pinnacle, and I was really excited about this run because I signed up to a group that already had 2 rep paladins. And within the community, we've actually put keys together which contain multiple rep paladins. And it's incredibly funny to watch. Just the pure army of pink, all of those divine storms. And after this challenge is over, I can actually join in. But the paladins I'm facing in this run, well, Muckman is sitting at over 430 item level, and Snap was sitting at 442. So this wasn't going to be a competition, right? Well, on single target, Snap was absolutely killing it. There was no way I could compete. However, when it came to AoE, I wasn't messing around. And just look at this damage, man. It's insane. Also, Guardian Druids, they're everywhere. That's by no means a complaint, by the way. So we absolutely smashed this run, as you would imagine, with a ret army like this. It takes our total rating up to 1,519, and damn, it looked like Snap just took the edge. But I mean, the guy's got like 20 more item level than me. It really shouldn't be this close. Oh well, I beat Muckman. I was kind of hoping for the neck piece that dropped for the druid, though sadly I got no loot and they needed it. Oh well, I got 4 set, who cares? We then move on to the last dungeon that I need for rating. A Nelfarian's Lair 14. Now, just like I mentioned for some of the other places, I'm not going to talk about this dungeon too much, though I just wanted to take this moment to remind tanks not to face the mobs at the rest of the party, especially when they have massive frontal abilities, like this one. Yeah, this happened a couple of times during this run. Oh, but we saved the best for last, because the last boss also has a frontal. You guys know where I'm going with this one, right? Alright, so we are progressing the last boss of Nelfarian's Lair plus 14. We're taking down the ad and the boss has less than 20% HP. The tank then decides to move the boss a little bit closer to the rest of the group. Now, this could have been to help cleave down the ad. They could have also done this so that they were closer to the rock when they needed to hide. Either way, by moving the boss stamps on the ground and does a load of AoE damage to everyone in the party. But now the boss's frontal is aimed at the rest of the group. And although I am quick enough to get out of it, the rest of the group not so much. So yeah, unfortunately, that does mean that we wipe. We get back to the last boss and things are looking so much better. And we do in fact 2 chests this run, and it takes our total rating up to 1,563. Not only that, but we do in fact loot a new chest piece. This was a pretty huge upgrade. And that is where this week's episode comes to an end. Starting at an item level of 407, we climb up to 420. We have been incredibly lucky with gear. We have obtained our 4 set, which is huge. And in 1 week, we take our total rating up to 1,563. Now, as mentioned on both Monday and Tuesday, I will look to do LFR and the normal raid. And with what time I have left, I will grind 11s to farm worm crests. That way I can upgrade all of the gear I currently have, and I can look to get some gear crafted. We have made some amazing progress on the paladin so far. I'm very happy with my performance and where we are, and the gear's coming along so quickly. And I mean, the paladin's already competing with the damage I can do on my demon hunter, so when this guy gets another 20 item level, holy moly. Absolutely loving this so far. I made the right choice in going ahead with the challenge. Brett Paladin just feels amazing. The right choice for me, I think. And hopefully it stays this way. If you guys did enjoy today's episode, a like would be much appreciated. But that's me done. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.